Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. We're going to move you to the lobby until it's time for the public comment portion of the meeting, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Miss Olivier, can you say something so we can hear you?
Good morning.
I can't tell. Can you say something one more time for me?
Good morning. Oh,
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Texas State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners is to establish and enforce policies to ensure the best possible quality of veterinary and equine dental provider services for the people of the state of Texas. Mrs. Whitehead, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Gola.
Present.
Dr. Greiner.
Present.
Ms. Whitehead is present. Dr. Skaggs.
Here.
Dr. McLeod.
Present.
Dr. Muchigamba.
Present.
Ms. Sue Allen.
Present.
Mr. Pardue.
Here.
Ms. Olivier.
Present.
All members are present.
Excellent, thank you. Agenda item number 2, consideration and approval of the April 15th, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting?
Move to approve.
Second? Okay, is there any discussion regarding the meetings, any edits or anything needed? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, minutes are approved. All right, we're gonna move into the public comment section, agenda item 3. Please be advised that comments must be limited to 3 minutes. We will keep the timer. If you hear the timer go off, please react accordingly to finish up your comments. Additionally, the board will not hear public comment or testimony regarding a pending disciplinary action or contested case. I will recognize the virtual comments first. Do we have any virtual comments? Name, can you read the name for me?
Suzanne Blakely.
Suzanne Blakely, we recognize you. Thank you for being here today, and you may proceed. And again, please stick to the 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am here about my complaint against Ren Johnson of Dogwood Animal Hospital. It is up for dismissal. The standard of care that he gave was inadequate and half of what his peers would have done. He hospitalized her with a serious infection. No antibiotics were given, no fluids, no pain medicine, and she had recently been diagnosed with diabetes, and he did not even test her or give her insulin. His professional conduct was off the charts bad. For example, he called me saying I needed to come spend time with her. Her heart was failing. Yet when I get there, she's in a coma, laying in her own feces. I rushed her to another clinic who requested her records. The records were inadequate. According to that vet, all it stated was hospitalization, and she stated it wasn't enough to treat Sophie properly. She passed away, never waking from the coma the next day. My heart will be forever broken, my trust broken. She was a huge part of our family, and I pray you take another look at this. I don't know if you can see this, but this is Sophie and I. Please reconsider and take another look. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blakely. We appreciate your comments.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any other further virtual comments. Therefore, we will move to those that are present. And first call up Ms. Anita Ross.
Thank you. Pursuant to the principles of administrative law and the expectation of lawful governance, the TBV is required to conduct all operations, decision and enforcement actions in strict compliance with all applicable state and federal laws, including but not limited to Texas Veterinary Licensing Act, Texas Occupations Code, and all duly adopted and published regulations governing veterinary medicine. As a Texas state agency, you have a fundamental responsibility to conduct all operations in full compliance with the law, upholding the highest standards of ethics, integrity, and public accountability. Your actions must reflect not only adherence to state and federal legal requirements, but also a commitment of moral and ethical principles that foster public trust. Therefore, every employee and officials are expected to act with honesty, transparency, fairness, and respect, ensuring that your agency's work promotes justice, equity, and the public interest. Your commitment to lawful and ethical business practices is not optional. It is essential for your mission of maintaining the confidence of the people of Texas. In the case of my beloved pirate, the board's conduct was a profound and inexcusable failure of its legal, moral, and ethical responsibilities. Despite presentation of strong, well-documented evidence of serious professional violations, the board chose not to conduct a thorough, impartial, or legal adequate review. This inaction speaks not only to gross negligence, but to an alarming bias, a deliberate choice to protect the veterinarian rather than to uphold their duty to the public and the animals whose lives depend on their integrity. By turning a blind eye to clear violations, the board betrayed the very trust placed in it by the public. Its role is to safeguard the welfare of animals and ensure accountability within the veterinary profession. Instead, it operated as a shield for misconduct. This failure is not just procedure, it is a failure of conscience. The board's behavior undermines public confidence and places countless animals at risk. Case in point, Dr. Casey Farazano Singletary and Donald A. Farrell, her attorney veterinarian, refused to cooperate with the investigator as required, and the board ignored this violation as well as multiple violations found by the investigator. And yet the email we received from Ms. Sharkey stated the board found no violation, totally ignoring the multiple violations that occurred. The board has continued to ignore my open records request for the 801208C, and the letter dated November the 10th, 2022 from John Hargis was written 402 days after our IC on October the 4th of 21. It is not a factual representation of the events that occurred. This abandonment of duty cannot go unchallenged. A system that protects professionals at the expense of justice, transparency, and the lives of the vulnerable has no legitimacy. The board is accountable to the public for its role in perpetuating harm through willful inaction and institutional bias. Justice for pirate is not just about one case. It is about demanding that those entrusted with oversight actually fulfill their obligations without prejudice or favoritism. Anything less is betrayal of the values their position demands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. I have no further sign-in for public comments, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item. It'll be 6, Director Reports, and I call on our Executive Director, Brittany Sharp.
Thank you, Dr. Gola. Board members, welcome. Happy summer. We are here. This is our first meeting after the conclusion of the 89th legislative session, which wrapped up on June 2nd. TBVME had a great legislative session. I want to thank some of our partners are actually in the room. TDLR's government relations team, Jeff Hubbs and Alex Hammond, were great partners to us in this session. And I think a large part too of why we have the successes we did. The two major bills that we are very excited about are SB 2155. This bill was required by our sunset bill from last session, SB 1414. This was a series of legislative recommendations made in conjunction with TDLR staff and our staff after kind of looking at things we needed to clean up. The Veterinary Licensing Act, that passed. Chairman Perry did a great job carrying that for us. One of the biggest things coming out of that bill is facility registration. So not only the board is now tasked with licensing not only individual veterinarians, licensed veterinary technicians and equine dental providers, but also veterinary facilities. The provisions for that don't go into effect until September 1st of 2027. So luckily we've got a good runway to help build in rules framework and really take some stakeholder meetings, kind of figure out what that's going to look like, but that's going to be a Herculean task for board and staff to take on, but we're very excited because we think this is a great tool to help us further protect the public. We will be one of 17 states that license individuals and facilities as well when this goes online.
Brittany, what's your expectation of the timeline for that?
So the expectation of timeline, our goal is that we would propose rules to the board for consideration and starting in October of 2026. Those rules would then be adopted in January of 27. They would be published. We'd start kind of a campaign around that. Registration would start likely sometime in summer of 2027 with enforcement provisions starting on September 1 of 2027.
Thank you.
And in the meantime and in the interim, the goal is to have stakeholder meetings and start gathering kind of input from anyone that may be impacted by this so we can have that information going forward, going into kind of that initial rule draft. So grateful for that runway. That makes our lives a lot easier. We get a lot of time, I think, to be thoughtful and deliberate when we make those rules and framework in place. One of the other exciting things that came out of this is it streamlines the process for prosecution of practice without license. So I, in my capacity as executive director, can issue an initial cease and desist order. Currently, we have to go to SOA to get that order issued against a non-licensed veterinarian. Now I can go ahead and issue that. And then when they violate, that's when we can start accumulating penalties against those folks. So we can really start, I think, beefing up our enforcement of practice without license efforts. So really thrilled to have that capability. And we also now have the issue with the facility registration. We also will be able to issue emergency orders to close facilities too, with when those circumstances are so exigent that we need that power. So a lot of really good tools in here to help us better protect the public. Additionally, HB 1545 passed, which pushes our next sunset date from 2027 to 2033. So that's a real vote of confidence from the legislature in the work that we're doing. And then finally, I think the most exciting thing from session that everyone is always very curious about, the money. The agency was appropriated an additional $500,000 in HB 500 for the continued and final build out of our database. So this is going to include our enforcement, legal, and compliance modules. The best part about this is it came in the supplemental spending bill, so we actually have access to that money now instead of having to wait until September 1. So we're working with our in-house team to kind of put together a punch list of what we need to actually build out those components, and hopefully can get that started here before too much longer. Any questions on what I'll probably go, since we have a lot of updates, I may go sort of point by point and stop and ask if anyone has further questions on legislative session. And there is a special session coming. We are not involved in any of the items on the call currently. Obviously, that's subject to change, but we don't anticipate anything impacting us directly.
Brittany, can you just emphasize, I think part of, as a board member, it's been so frustrating sometimes when we have an inspector that sees someone practicing without a license and the timeline to go to SOA and get that. I mean, that was upwards of a month or more. I mean, sometimes we literally know someone's practicing without license and we were handcuffed because we couldn't.
Right.
So that's a major deal.
And so especially with non-licensed folks, because we are an administrative agency, if they aren't licensed with us, we don't really have a lot of jurisdictional teeth to go after them. So they can just ignore us. And the court does put, I think, rightfully so, sort of restrictions on how we can proceed with default hearings, how much notice we have to give them, how long that has to be. And so this really can drag on for months just to go to SOA to get the cease and desist order, to tell somebody simply just to stop doing an activity that is breaking the law. And now being able to issue that directly in-house, providing that notice to folks. And then it's going to make that once they turn around and violate that, much easier to enforce those truly bad actors. So this is going to help us work against, sort of the innocent mistake folks faster, and then really be able to go after those people that are sort of willfully and knowingly violating that provision. So this is huge. Thank you. Yes, thank you. All right, next up, we are starting the process of a full rule review. So every agency is required to do this once every 4 years. We were also required to do it during the period of our attachment with the supervision of TDLR. So this process will be starting. I want to just call this to your attention. The game plan will be starting at our October 2026 meeting, that we will be proposing sort of full chapters of our rules, new and updated versions of our rules to y'all to start reviewing. So the draft that you all will see will be a product of staff recommendations as well as the rules committee input. And we're asking for you to, this is a lot of work. It's going to be sort of very tedious work to go through kind of line by line on the rules, but we do ask for y'all's help and guidance and assistance when we get to those chapters. But this is a new process for many of us. And so we just didn't want everyone to sort of be shocked when you get a whole package of rules for the October meeting and are surprised by what that is. So the plan is to go chapter by chapter through the fiscal year. So we'll start with licensing, then we'll go to rules of professional conduct. We'll go to sort of general administrative procedures, and then finally that last chapter kind of dealing with board structure. So we anticipate licensing should be pretty easy. That last chapter will be pretty easy. It's those two in the middle that are going to be the most content heavy and going to require the most input from the board. So that's, as our professionals and as our members of the public, we really are going to be looking to you for that guidance and expertise there. So thank you in advance to the rules committee. This is not going to be an easy task, but we really appreciate the work y'all are going to do on this.
Brittany, can I ask, in that process, how can the public play a role in providing comment on those and appropriate timelines for the chapters we're discussing?
So the timeline will be that we vote to propose the rule package starting in October. And so at that point, the public comment window will open and we'll take that in and then adjust it when we go to it. The plan will be to adopt the rules at the subsequent meeting. And so that'll give us time to take in any public comment, recommend or propose any changes from there, and then adopt it at the following meeting.
And the rules committee will vet that before it goes to the full board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Something internally that we are very excited about, our systems administrator, Femi, has been really hard at work on building out himself a new internal inspection system. So we are actually currently working on getting it tested and in the field. Basically, he was able to expand our current database, kind of play with the back end, build out a fully digital inspection system. So no more spreadsheets, no more paper tracking, everything living in the database. We were able to get every one of our investigators a tablet that'll have easy access to this database. This is going to streamline our processes so much. We're really excited to launch this. So we're in the testing phase now. We hope to go live on September 1 at the start of the new fiscal year so that we can keep the data sort of clean and organized that way. But this is a big win for continuing to modernize our database and modernize the data we have available to the public to make our decisions. For the first time, we have some staffing updates to share. Mary Monk, our fantastic legal assistant, is leaving us at the end of the month to go to law school. We couldn't talk her out of it. We tried. So we are definitely going to miss her, but she brings with her, Angela Martinez is our new legal secretary who comes to us from the Attorney General's office. So she's getting the best training in the world from Mary and has already been a great addition to the team. So if we've got to say goodbye to Mary, I get, we've got a good backup, but we wish you all the best, Mary. You're gonna be great, but just come back to us when you get that law degree and you can be a staff attorney for us.
Thank you so much for your hard work, and I know many of us email you constantly too, so appreciate your work and wish you all the best.
Yes, and similar, Mary, you've done a great job for us. Your communication has been consistent and you listened to the requests that we've had and served us in a very great capacity. So thank you for that.
Additionally, Michael Gramatsky and Yesenia Sablehouse, two of our investigators, left the agency in June to pursue other opportunities. We wish them all the best. So Cashel Bell is a current Houston investigator. She's going to be relocating to fill that kind of Austin, Central Texas regional role. And in the interim, we've hired Mark Schilly and Rachel Triber to fill out those two open Houston area investigator roles. Mark is a retired DEA agent and supervisor, brings over 30 years of law enforcement experience to the agency. And Rachel's a former veterinary practice manager who brings a wealth of industry experience to the agency. So we're really excited by these new hires. Mark has already joined us and Rachel will be joining us in the early August. So those vacancies will not be vacancies for much longer. Also very excitingly, at the request of the board, we will be officially launching board notes after this board meeting. So the long winter of our discontent is over. So this will be our first volume of our quarterly newsletter to our licensees and anyone else signed up for those updates. So after this first version goes out, I welcome any suggestions or additional information to include. A big thank you to Dr. Gola, Dr. McLeod, and Dr. Muchigemba. They wrote articles for the TVMA magazine that we are then going to repurpose as additional resources into this. Into our newsletter as well to help provide guidance for our licensees on sort of best practices. So thank you for providing us the content and we'll be getting that out. Also, if you have comments on the graphic design, I did it myself. So please be kind and I'm really figuring out what a straight line looks like. It's a little more challenging than I anticipated, but another exciting update from around the agency, we are actually welcoming our first graduate extern later this summer. She is a joint DVM and MPH candidate from A&M. She will be with us for 2 weeks. She's got a real interest in regulatory veterinary medicine and regulatory policy. So we're going to set her on a research project to really help us with some of the facility registration piece. So she's going to take a deep dive into other states and put together a report for us that's going to help, I think, inform the framework of our stakeholder meetings. And the rules that we end up creating for that facility registration. So very excited to welcome her on board and hopefully this is the first and many of our interns and externs that we can start welcoming to the agency. And I do want to highlight one final thing. One of our most challenging performance measures to meet has always been our case resolution time. The Legislative Budget Board has set us a preferred case resolution time of 180 days. Given that the board only meets quarterly, that is still a bit of a challenging metric to meet. That can eat up 90 days there while waiting for our next board meeting. But I want to highlight the work of multiple departments. When I became ED, we were at over an average of 560 days for case resolution. We are now in this most recent quarter reporting an average of 394 days. So 165 days that we've been able to shave off that average resolution time. And so That's great work of our enforcement division, our legal division, our medical reviewer, and the board for really taking on a lot of informal conferences to help get those cases resolved. So this is a joint effort and a big win that I think we should highlight. The challenge, is when you get additional funding like we got last session to hire new investigators, to hire new attorneys, it takes a while to sort of see those trickle down effects of those additional staff resources. And I think we are really finally starting to see that in our numbers. So this is exciting development in the right direction, and just really, really proud of the team and the work they've done. So that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, a question about your extern that you have, or your intern. What year in vet school are they?
Ooh. Do you know last year? Oh, she's in her last
Okay,
year.
so it's the fourth year.
Yeah.
Okay, and is that gonna be something y'all offer to both schools, or how did that come about, I guess?
She actually reached out to us and wanted to come work with us. So we're hoping that we can sort of grow and develop this program, kind of see how this goes, and then offer it to both schools.
Great.
So we're gonna start with one, start small, and then really work on, Kelly and I are gonna work on kind of developing this into a more structured program so we can welcome more folks into the fold of what we do here at the board.
I just want to take the opportunity as well to say thank you to you and all the staff, especially legislative sessions are a big task in themselves, educating people, getting them up to date. But not only that, but telling the story of the excellent work that you guys are doing. So thank you for your time, and I hope you all had some great vacations planned or two coming up. But thank you, and thank you, Dr. Gola, for all your time providing testimony and supporting and helping. It's a big lift every other year for sure.
Yes. And Dr. Gola has been a great partner to the staff on us and this. So this does not happen in a vacuum. So thank you.
Yeah, legislative session is always fun, for the lack of a better word. Jeff, thank you for all the time we've had on the phone, and it does take a village to make sure that we're communicating effectively. And I think this board should celebrate the fact that our sunset review has been pushed from 2027 to 2033. I think that is a testament to the attachment to TDLR, our collaboration, and we should all celebrate that. So thank you all for everybody's contribution and work. And don't worry if you missed out on this session. We've got one coming up in less than 2 years. So we'll be back out of here very quickly.
One next week too.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can stay out of that.
Yes.
Any other questions for Brittany for her report?
Thank you. We will go over to Wendy with our licensing division report.
Hello, thank you. Oops, my computer just turned up.
Do you want me to?
You may have to skip me. I'm on my computer.
All right, we'll come back to Wendy while we figure out the technical issues. Mike, if you want to give us our enforcement report.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Last quarter, we brought in 310 cases. We've been averaging about 100 complaints a month, which is kind of an uptick from 40 or 50, which is what we've been used to. Out of them 310, 66 of them were non-jurisdictional that we were able to close pretty quick. And then we completed 195 investigations during that quarter. So we ended the quarter with about 432 open investigations, and that's up from the previous quarter of 350. Currently we're right around 400, maybe just under 400 today. So that number is starting to come down. The number one category of complaints is standard of care allegations. We had 170, and then our second top allegation is practicing without license. There were 35 of them, and then it went down to honesty, integrity, fair dealing, where there were 26 of them. So out of that 300, those were the top three categories. Inspections, we completed a total of we did 410 inspections, and out of that we opened 22 complaints. So we have a real good year going in inspections. Currently today, we're right at 1,548, so we're 52 away from hitting our performance measure. So we should achieve that a month early. Out of that, we've opened about 9 cases. So, and most of them are drug record keeping violations. That's the number one category. Not having inventories, drug records not adding up, significant variances. That's the biggest category. And that concludes, the enforcement, unless you have any questions.
Mike, as you know, I got inspected and boy, howdy, you guys are rough. Not really, Mike. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the inspector and their professional standard that they set. And also how easy it is now for us to be able to find the information we need to get that inspection, make sure that inspection goes well for us. We spend a little time looking at the list of things y'all are gonna be looking at, making sure it's all in order. It becomes an easy process. Still scary,
Right,
but easy.
right.
So thanks for your help and the inspector, how professional he was.
Thank you. I will certainly pass that on to you.
Okay, Mike, anything else?
I believe that's all I had unless I forgot something.
No. Any other questions for Mike? All right,
Thank you.
we will come back to Wendy with the licensing report.
Hello, everyone. The licensing team is reporting for the third quarter of FY '24, which is March, April, May. As far as new licenses issued, we've issued 323 new DVM licenses plus 9 DVM reinstatements. We're seeing an uptick in reinstatements as people are moving back to Texas. We have 1 new EDP license issued and 76 new LBT licenses issued, plus 1 reinstatement of an LBT. That makes a total of 410 new and reinstated licenses issued in the third quarter. As far as license renewals, we renewed 2,415 DVM licenses, 10 EDP licenses, and 601 LBT licenses, for a total of 3,016 licenses renewed in the third quarter. I'm gonna give the report for the total active agency license counts, and active means those whose licenses in one of the following statuses: active, expired, inactive, suspended, and probated suspended. We don't count as active, revoked, retired, surrendered, deceased, or canceled statuses. The total active agency license counts as of May 31st, 2025 were 11,923 DVM licenses, 2,800 LVT licenses, and 58 EDPs, for a third quarter and total of 14,781 active licenses. And in other licensing news, we issued license number 20,000 the week of June 1st. We had a little party, but we're up over 20,200 now. So just since June 1st, when all the graduates came through, we had a big bump. But this concludes the licensing report. Do you have any questions?
I have one question. In regards to the 323 new licenses, I mean, obviously a lot of those are new grads, right? We can do the math and guess some things. Do we know how many came from out of state? Do we have that? Do we track that?
I don't think we track that. I mean, obviously we have their transcripts, but I don't know that there's a box anywhere where we could run a report.
I would sure like to track that data. I think it's going to be important, especially as we go forward with the legislature, with the new grads that we've got that are graduating from our new schools. How many are we still importing? I think we need to know that information. I think that would be valuable if we could track that down.
Okay.
When did you say that a license 6871 would be old? License.
I wouldn't say that at all.
Thank you.
Anything below 5,000 is usually the phone calls I get asking me
Just
how
barely got in under the wire, didn't you?
But that changes every year.
anything under 5,000, my tone changes to much more gentle. This is how you right click on a file. But we did get someone like a 1,600 license through a renewal this week, so
Wow.
you're doing pretty well. I think he was about 92.
Good deal.
Awesome.
So 6,000 is not old to me.
No.
Does anyone have any other questions?
We found some old directories when we were moving that listed all the licensees, and the earliest we found license number 3. Was enlisted in this directory from I think about the 1940s, so that was pretty cool. But that was 1,600 still. Kelly with the legal report.
Right, so I have the case numbers for you. These were compiled on June 23rd. At that time, we had 303 total complaints. 41 of those were pending board IC, 130 pending board action, 37 approving, pending board approval of orders, 6 on hold pending civil or criminal proceedings, 17 pending staff conference, 10 cases filed at SOA, 11 cases pending SOA filing, 12 cases pending a cease and desist order, 38 pending agreed order, and 1 case pending a licensee committee hearing. So projected after today's board meeting, we're looking at approximately 158 complaints remaining.
Kelly, what's the timeline on SOA cases?
It frankly, it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of like getting them filed, once they're actually, the complaint is filed and scheduling a hearing, it'll depend on how long the hearing needs to be set for, and so is availability, obviously, but usually they're set within a couple of months.
Okay.
And then once they're heard, we have 2 months for the ALJ to issue a proposal for decision, and then so that sometimes slows things down as well.
So most of the cases pending SOA or filed at SOA are within the last couple of, like, they're
Yes.
not like 5-6 years old.
So I would say a couple of the ones filed, actually, we have 9 that are all related to the same respondent filed right now. Those are set for hearing on August 11th. Those are some older cases, but assuming that hearing goes forward is scheduled on the 11th, they should be off our docket pretty soon.
When you say older, do you have a date?
So for those, I believe they're all like 20, 21, there's 22 kind of in that general range.
I do have a question. Every once in a while, we come up with something that's really old.
Yes.
Are we still finding those? Are they hidden away someplace and you move a file and they're at the bottom?
So we do have still on our case log a couple of cases that are older, I would say like in that 20, I think is the oldest. They're all either pending SOA or filed at SOA at this point.
And are a couple of those also somebody on hold?
Yes, and some of them are on hold because of like pending
Civil
outside
litigation.
civil litigation. So those we're not able to do anything with us at this time.
Any other questions for Kelly? Right. Jared with the compliance.
Good morning. The compliance department currently has 37 licensees that are being monitored regarding board orders. The task of DPS fingerprint validations is still continuing to be done daily and will continue for years to come. Every licensee will have their fingerprints validated after 5 years to make sure they are still active per licensee, per state and federal guidelines. Staying on the fingerprint topic, I've reviewed 940 total fingerprint submissions this fiscal year so far, so we'll easily be over 1,000 again by the end of this fiscal year. So far, the compliance department, myself, has fielded 409 calls for compliance, licensing, fingerprints, CEs, and general agency related questions from licensee and applicants so far this year. I'm happy to report though that the number of calls is declining as more information is now on our updated website and our employees are getting well versed in agencies, rules, and regulations. The compliance department is also assisted with 131 interagency related requests from various departments within our unit. Finally, CEs are required to be uploaded upon license renewal, and if not, an extension may be granted with auditing taking place when extension due dates are expired. This is being tracked through our new database, and compliance so far with the CE extensions has been impressive. I have, however, submitted 18 cases for CE noncompliance to enforcement for further investigation as of this meeting. And lastly, 4 complaints have been referred to enforcement over the past month for violations of board orders. And with that, I can answer any questions.
I had a question. Did I understand you right? Fingerprints need to be renewed every 5 years?
No, I have to validate your fingerprint in my system to make sure that you're a current licensee. If not, I have to unfollow the fingerprint because I can't see it by state and federal guidelines.
So yes, internal process, not for the licensee.
Right, just a quick question. There was a time, I think, that you or someone had said that we had to go get our fingerprints redone. Is that
Never been the case.
misunderstanding?
Yeah, never has been the case. Once you do them, they're always in the system. I just can't see them. So if you were to leave the state and not be a licensee, I have to unfollow the fingerprints. However, if you come back in and reinstate your license, I can go back into the DPS database and follow your fingerprints. You don't need to get fingerprinted again.
Okay, great, thank you.
Jared, just a question of housekeeping here. I'm trying to follow your report, but it's different than what.
Yeah, because when I submitted the report, I submitted it over to legal on June 11th. So the
This will be updated.
stats and everything have gone out.
It'll be updated in
Yeah,
a minute.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Jared? Okay. As you can see, we are missing a director. Candace is at a conference for state agency CFOs and finance folks. And because this is following a legislative session, there's a lot of important updates that we felt it was important for her to be there to learn, to make sure that we're getting all of that information. So for today, I am Candace also. So we are currently, as of June 1st, about 83% of the way through the year and have spent approximately 68% of our budget. So we are definitely on the underside there. We are very excited this year. We were able to, all eligible board staff will receive a one-time merit bonus this year because of that financial because of that budget surplus that we are going into the end of the fiscal year with. And we are also currently working on making some end of year purchases for various departments, so technology upgrades, anything like that that needs to happen to help further spend down that. So the goal is to basically end the year. We will probably still return a little bit of money back to the state, but only just enough to make sure that we have a cushion and don't accidentally go into the red. So trying to spend that down as responsibly as we can. Candace also highlights with the passage of HB 500 that we already received the appropriation for the database expansion. We have to spend that money by June 22nd of 2027. That is the only it gives us less time, or we don't get until the end of the fiscal year to spend the money. We still only get that 2-year window to spend the funds, but I don't think we're gonna have a problem with that. We are on track to meet our ALRC requirements. So that's our appropriations are limited to our revenue collected. So that means that we are going to meet the appropriations with the revenue we collected. Let's see. She's currently working on fiscal year end out closeout duties and establishing the funding and getting that set up for next year's budget. And I believe that is it for her updates. So I will happy to field any finance questions as best I can.
When do you expect to get started on that database?
So right now, Femi has our systems administrator, so we work on a Salesforce platform. Femi has a lot of great Salesforce experience, and he's been able to actually build out a lot of the compliance module himself. So really, we're kind of trying to see what he can do himself internally, make a punch list of what we need that outside help for and that funding for. Likely a lot of it's going to go towards some kind of in-cloud file storage to make sure that we can access like full case files within the database too. That's not really the Salesforce use case, so we are probably gonna have to go out to a different platform for that. So I anticipate he's probably gonna take the summer to start really getting that punch list finalized of what he can build out, what we need to bring in an outside team to help with. And then I would anticipate work starting in the fall.
So do we own the database outright, or is there a contract that they have to service it? And how is our internal person able to make adjustments to someone else's product?
So we do not, so it's a Salesforce platform, so it is a software as a subscription, so we pay a renewal fee every year for the amount of licenses we have. So we all on staff have licenses into the database, and we are working also on expanding it for board access eventually too, once we get the enforcement and the compliance modules up and running. So we pay them an ongoing every year maintenance fee to keep that going. He is a Salesforce trained person and can get into the back end of the code and start working things around. My understanding is that it's fairly intuitive and user friendly for that. It's an off the shelf product that you can then build in customizations to. So, I mean, he's able to get into the back end and fix that. I'm a terrible millennial and not great at technology, but that is my understanding of what is happening.
Salesforce offers certifications, and he's got some certifications in the Salesforce. So that's one of the reasons why he went to the top of the list when we hired him. It was that he had Salesforce.
So is Salesforce the name of the company is, okay.
It is the software provider. So they are in the database business, basically.
They're one of the largest.
And so when we went out for the procurement of the database, we also submitted to the vendor who built out. So it's on a Salesforce platform. We used a team from Deloitte to actually build out the platform. We submitted a procurement to Deloitte looking for kind of ongoing maintenance costs, what it would take for them to sort of be on call to do that work for us. And it was cost prohibitive. It was actually less expensive for us to hire a full-time member of the staff on our team to do the tech work for us. So that's why we ended up hiring Femi last fall.
And be more responsive.
And can do a lot more for us in terms of, more sort of general admin IT stuff, website updates, things like that. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other finance questions? Great. All right, that concludes the director reports. Thank you all.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 7, board committee reports. I'll start with the executive committee report. This last quarter was filled with conversations from both universities and their graduating classes regarding clarification of rules and applications thereof. The highlight of the quarter, though, was the invitation to present to the Texas Tech School of Veterinary Medicine's 4th year class on May the 15th. That was allowed to give their last lecture of their educational career. And it was a highlight of my quarter for sure, getting to talk to the first graduating class and basically just talk to them about their upcoming responsibilities and privilege as a license holder in the state of Texas. It was a real honor to do so. Then on May 18th, I was invited to attend their graduating ceremonies. And Texas Tech didn't leave any imagination left for that ceremony. It was rather spectacular to say the least. The governor was there. Just about every honorary in the state of Texas was there. It was pretty impressive for sure. The Texas Panhandle represented well. The big thing that I wanted to just talk to the board about in our report is the number of IC cases that is upon us. We have really ramped up the number of complaints, as you can tell from Mike Tacker's report. And we've really opened up the cadence for our ICs. We're really now doing just about 2 a month every month. There's been a couple months where we didn't, but as those things are ready and coming to us, and we've changed our protocol. There used to be a time on the board where only certain people were allowed to do ICs. That's not the case. Everybody on this board is now doing ICs. I'm very proud of that. And I want to thank y'all for the work because I know how much it takes to prepare for the IC, the case review that you have to do. You got to be prepped. And it takes a lot of time from our day during the week. However, one of the challenges that we're having is that we're having a hard time scheduling who is available. And I've asked Kelly to look further down the calendar to get these things scheduled out further so that maybe our calendars will be more open. But I would ask you to please get with Kelly and give us some dates so that we can get you scheduled. Because if not, the case log that we're receiving, we're going to get backtracked, and we've worked really hard to get to where we are, and we've got room to improve, but we can't let this be our funnel point where we get caught. So I just ask each board member to look at your calendar, give Kelly some dates. If you know your December dates now, give them to her, and that helps. But I want us to continue to all participate as we can, and I think just working maybe further down the schedule will help us accomplish that. So any comments or questions, suggestions that y'all have, now's a good time to talk about it.
I know that I've made this comment a couple times, and I'm one of those notorious folks who has a crazy schedule. But I see so much opportunity for bundling the similar style cases and doing sort of a docket call style process. So whereas we get 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and then we have so much time in between each one, like it's a docket call. We provide the notice. These 12 cases are going to be heard in this order on this day, and we start and we go. And so providing notice to the public and the attorneys and the respondents, hey, your time frame is going to be somewhere between these 2 hours. And I understand the burden that it has of us prepping more cases, or timeframes for folks who would Zoom in. But I feel like everyone would benefit from the ability to like knock them out in a day.
Sure.
So I've suggested that a couple times. I know it's kind of tough to do it sometimes, but man, I feel like we can sit there, especially on some of these cases that are a little bit easier. Obviously, the ones that are more robust need longer time. But
I think it's a good point to consider, and the staff can sure look at how we would manage that, navigate that. But you bring up some good points, because if a case needs to go longer, we don't want to be rushed because the next one starts in 5 minutes. We want to be able to take our time. At the same token, if we finish a case early, we could get started on the next one, and we're not sitting there twiddling our thumbs, wasting our day. And so I think that's maybe something we could consider and bring back.
Well, I have a comment on that. When I first started, it was all in person. And you waited downstairs either all morning or all afternoon. And now we have the ability to do everything on Zoom. So there's no reason why they can't be available to do that. And this is definitely something that we've discussed many times before, but we're told no, and just don't understand why we can't have this group in the morning, that group in the afternoon, and you all need to be waiting because your turn is coming. And with the fact that they don't have to drive 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, take a plane, something that should, be a consideration in pushing this particular agenda forward in trying to resolve more cases whenever possible.
And the challenge we have, we instituted this scheduling to help accommodate more complainants, because complainants have a harder time sort of, it's not their license, it's not that taking that time off. And so we had much lower complainant participation with those in-person ICs. And so in order to help increase it, that's why we moved to the scheduling. And that's why we've kind of resisted, I think, moving towards that. We can, if that's something the board wants to consider, we can definitely look into that and exploring that. And so but knowing that inevitably there are trade-offs, that we might have lower complainant participation. We'll, obviously when it's somebody's license, we expect them to make the time and make themselves readily available. But for those members of the public, I think that can be a challenge. So something to consider, but if that is if that concern feels mitigated to the board, then we can definitely move in that direction.
And there may be some ways to mitigate that with staff efforts where we let the complainants know, hey, you got a 15-minute countdown, be ready. And that way they're not there when we need them, right? They can hop on. So there may be some ways for us to navigate that.
well, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe we just test it out. But again, I think the severity of the IC cases comes into play here. So the ones where maybe the case isn't as severe or as severe of a potential violation, we group a bunch of those in on a similar day. I don't like the ones where we're having major class violations. I wouldn't do that with those. Because you do need the time and you need time for both, but the ones that are maybe less severe, kind of group those in that day and just test it. And if it's a failure, then I will accept that failure and we move on.
We can absolutely try.
That's fair. Good comments. Again, I want to thank each board member for y'all's time and energy. It's a lot of work. But we still need more of it. So appreciate y'all, what you've done and look forward to that going forward. That'll conclude my report. Is there anybody else that has any other updates on their committees that you'd like to participate?
I just want to share, Finance Committee is now back together following our reappointments, I guess, last board meeting, but we'll be bringing a report to every board meeting going forward.
Okay. All right. Hearing none else, we'll move forward to agenda item number 8, discussion and recommendation of possible action regarding proposed rule changes to 16 Texas Administrative Code 577.15 fee schedule to be published in the Texas Register. And I recognize Ms. Sharkey.
So board members, you may notice you do not have any materials on this agenda item. We were working with the Legislative Budget Board to make sure that the math was in fact mathing. I went to law school, not math schools, I like to tell folks. So we wanted to make sure that we had those numbers right before we brought them to y'all. I think it was probably a little overly ambitious given the where we are post-session and with a special session starting next week that we just weren't able to get the kind of confirmation and information we needed from LBB in time for the meeting to have y'all review. So at this time, I would ask that you postpone this agenda item to a future meeting when we can get that and make sure that we are bringing you and bringing our licensees fully accurate and correct licensing fee information. But it is our intent, now that we have paid for the build out of the database, that we can lower the fees. That was a big reason that we had to raise the fees so high, was to help pay for that sort of one-time cost. And now that we have paid those costs, we can now discuss lowering them. And that's been our commitment to the licensees, that this was always temporary. So we are excited to be able to do this sooner than we initially had anticipated, because the build out went so quickly. But we would ask for a motion to postpone this item until a future meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of postponing this item to a future meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, agenda item number 9, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding appointments to the Equine Dental Provider Advisory Committee. So unfortunately, Dr. Bill Stone has resigned his position on the EP committee. And in that, we have needed to appoint somebody new. So I've asked and appointed Dr. Bill Buchanan from Navasota, and he has accepted the position. Is there any questions or discussions in regard to this? Ben Buchanan. Okay, yeah. I said Bill. Did I say Bill? You did. Well, Ben Buchanan. Bill, oh, you know why? Because that's what everyone has. Ben Buchanan, excuse me. Yeah. Any discussion?
Do you need a motion? to
Nope,
approve
this is
that? Okay.
this is appointed by me and carries forward. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 10, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding the approval process for continuing education courses. I recognize Ms. Womack to discuss current staff process, and then Ms. Allen to discuss board approval process.
Thank you. So 90 days before a licensee's expiration date, which is the last day of their birthday month.
Sorry, CE approval, like how we approve the classes.
I was gonna go through the whole approval process, or did you just want
The
the?
course approval.
Oh, so just the course approval.
Sorry if I was
Okay.
unclear.
I didn't know if you wanted an overview of the whole process, how they submit their CE and how it's approved. So just as far as the courses, there are approved entities in the laws and rules that they are allowed to have their courses given by, such as local VMAs, if they're approved by the state for another state, we accept those. So people like that are the ones that we allow to give approved CE. And so that's what I'm looking for when I open their CE certificates to approve them. What more did you want me to?
Oh, just who are those that kind of automatic, or like what, so what happens when a CE looking for approval comes into staff?
So it comes in through their renewal application, and I open each one and I check it against their claim. They fill out a little form in the CE area to create a claim. I call it a line item because it looks like line items to me. So then I open the corresponding CE certificate and I make sure that it matches in number and in name and in type. Because it will say on each certificate if it's non-interactive or interactive and how many hours it is. So their little line item claim has to match what's on the certificate. So if their certificate is not signed or filled out, I ask them to sign it and fill it out in some cases if it's a really big one. If it's 1 hour, sometimes I just let it go if it's not filled out, but the 1 hour ones usually say what it is on there. So the only ones that I reject as unapproved are ones where it doesn't have any race approval on it. It doesn't have any approval by a local VMA. I asked them, can you show me a list of the classes? Maybe you can get a letter from another state saying, oh, well, Virginia accepts it. Why won't you accept it? That kind of thing. So that's what I do when I go through the approval process. Let me make sure I'm covering everything here. So I was talking about when the CE is coming in from the licensees, but then we also have CE that we approve, that we allow people to give to BBMs, EVPs, and LDTs.
Could I ask a question on the CE coming in from the licensee? My understanding had always been that if I go to something that's race approved, VMA approved, et cetera, it's automatically accepted. But if I went to something that wasn't race approved, doesn't mean it's not accepted.
Right, race approval is just one type of
Right.
approval that we accept.
So then it's at your discretion if what I went to is,
Not my discretion, it's in the rules and laws.
well, that's what I'm trying to clarify. If I go to
Yeah.
something that's not race approved or not VMA approved, but I feel it was a valid CE, can I submit that?
You can submit it and you'll just have to show me that it's accepted by another
Statewide.
state or that it somehow falls under the other acceptable entities in the laws and rules.
Yeah, because I know some of the race fees for approving these things had precluded some people from seeking race approval. They say it's not worth our time to waste money on it. Here's a CE. If you want to come do it, great. Do with it what you want.
And yeah, like I said, a lot of those are from local VMAs. A lot of the local VMAs don't bother getting race approval, and that's perfectly fine.
Well, a lot of the drug company things as well. They'll have a 2-day long continued ed thing that's not race approved.
The drug companies will usually get race approved or they'll apply to us.
Okay.
So I'll get a request from a CE provider that they want to get approval from the state. So it'll come in on email, usually in one PDF, and they'll have our application. If they want DVM and LBT and EDP credit, they'll include 3 applications. Then they send the check in the mail. They don't have to send a hard copy in the mail, just the check. So the digital copy comes in, I submit it, or I review it first to make sure it has all the components, which is the application, the resumes for each speaker. It has to be a full resume, not just a little bio of how they like taking walks and German shepherds, which I do get a lot. It has to be a whole resume, and it has to have an agenda with times listed for the workshop. So 7 to 7:30 introductions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes they include PowerPoint slides, which is nice. Once I'm sure that it's complete, then I forward it to Sue Allen with a worksheet that has the name of it and the speakers on it. And then she reviews it on her side, determines if the credit that they're requesting is the credit that should be given for that type of class, or if the speakers are valid, or if the topics are something that we can allow. Then she sends it back to me, at which point I write an approval letter. And it's a pretty detailed letter filling out the name of the class, how many hours, who it's approved for, who it's approved by, and then they have to create a certificate for their attendees.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Allen, you want to continue?
Thank you. Maybe that helps a little bit. I know that because Dr. Kreiner has done this in the past, and I think Dr. Skaggs has done this too. I know there's a standard review for CE applications for Texas. DVM CE must be taught by DVM unless, it's like a practice management person that's better versed or being taught by an LBT. LBTC can be taught by DVM or LBT. EDPs can be taught by DVM or EDP, and et cetera. Just as an example, and I'm not pointing them out, but just as an example, A&M has an annual Vet Tech CE event every year. A fair number of those are well experienced in their field, but they're not LBTs of any way, shape, or form. And I think that can cause some concern if they're interpreting this. It's like they're not an LBT, but it's a CE. I've been to A&M CE events in years past. And I have to say the ones I attend are pretty robust. I don't think it's unique to any CE. Sometimes they're not as good as they should be. But I think that just poses some concerns. And Wendy knows I've kicked a few back. One submitted a PowerPoint that an elementary kid could have done a better job. I think it was a filler at the last minute. It was by a rep. Industry rep, and it's like, there was no way I could approve it. It was just not adequate CE. So that's just kind of my concern. And, I'm mindful of Wendy's job, but sometimes it's like, I didn't get a resume on this person. And she's right. Sometimes you just get a little bio. I like walks in the park and like to take, paint rocks. They're not very informative. But I think there's just some concerns about that process. And I don't know, do they get blanket approval as like VMAs or TVMA so they don't undergo a process, correct?
The VMAs do.
Okay.
So currently in our rules, AVMA, CE, any state VMA, local or regional VMA, or any CE sponsored by the colleges automatically,
Okay.
or sorry, by any AVMA accredited veterinary medical school is accepted, as well as anything that is race approved. So basically anything that doesn't meet does not fall into one of those categories is what then gets filtered up to our licensing committee for approval.
I think that my time of service on the committee, Sue's done a really good job with it, but what concerns us is we have an LBT schedule, a continuing education, we don't have an LBT one that's presenting any of the courses. Or we'll have a DVM presenting a course on rabies vaccination around epidemic problems with rabies around a fishing trip. You know, that they don't really have credentials. So we've been as a group kind of prone to reject those. And that's been our process. If you don't have a little bit of an extra ability to educate folks on those, you know, what extra study in that or extra work in that field, then we've been a little bit reluctant to go ahead and issue those CEs. And I think that's a good plan, but I think, you know, it's one of the things that the board probably needs to be aware of, that, you know, there's a lot of gray area there. And sometimes it makes tough decisions. Sue's done a very good job with it, but you know, sometimes, as we all know, we've all been on these deals and heard about them, that they're not really continuing education and more goof off times. And so that's the gray line of work, you know, and that's where I think Sue is kind of wanting everybody to maybe an input on that, or what would.
Well, and for like the ALAS, so the Texas Lab Animal Association, a lot of those presenters aren't necessarily LVTs, but they're DVMs or they're lab techs, so they're versed in that field. Texas State Department of Health Services, they do a lot of rabies, and so they may have masters in public health and epidemiology and zoology, and those individuals are certainly better versed at talking about those topics. But I think maybe a little more clarity on that process. And I know I've said this before, and I think it may be coming up in potential rules, Ms. Sharkey, is a standard for submission of CEs. Because just recently, there was one dated for the 30th of May. It hit her desk on the 7th of July, and they wanted to put it on the 9th. And I try to check my emails every night, but I don't always, and I just happened to see it. I'm not inclined to do it retroactively, so I just put a comment. Please be mindful to submit these a little more timely.
We have a way to put that on paper. What
I don't know what would be reasonable.
What would be a good time frame that you guys would suggest? 2 weeks, 2 months?
It was always 2 weeks previously.
Yeah, they pay extra if they're within
But-
30 days.
But the extra isn't really enough money to get their attention.
How much is it?
I don't know.
It was $25, and then if it was late, it was $50.
So I think
That sounds right.
isn't it 45 and 100 now?
I think it is.
I think it's 45 for that initial approval, and it's 100 for if it's within 30 days. And we will be having the fee discussion here shortly, and so hopefully at the next meeting, and so that is something also via rule that we can decide to make that disparity more
I think it
significant.
would be better for, as a group, Sue could probably correct me, but if we push that date back, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and if you've got to pay the extra fee within 4 weeks of doing it, because it does become tough. We're all busy, and you get to ask at the last minute, well, we may have to try to do it retroactive, and if we don't pass it, everybody's mad.
Well, clearly these events are planned out, and so to have, I mean, in the legal field, I think it's 60 to 90 days even that you have to submit something for CLE approval. So if they're trying to get people to their event, they're clearly planning it and can get their PowerPoint together. And I'm curious, and this can be prepped for when we do the rules discussion, but one thing that as a public member I see, and you know, we, the legal field, have to have ethics, law, and best practice management. Something that I've seen kind of just in the newer generations of vets that are coming in is just general discussion of like business management and how that plays into standard of care. And I fully understand that continuing education, especially in the medical field, needs to be medical and medical based, but do we give education credits for kind of that other side of the standard of care where it comes to like communication, business management, things that, you know, help you not fall below the standard of care when done properly?
So while it's not currently required, we do place a limit that can be no more of the 17 hours that DVMs are required to get each year. They can only get 5 in that sort of practice management, non-medical component. So
LBTs can get 2 of the 10.
Mhm.
But it's not a required
Not a
portion of their deal?
No.
Okay. I think it's an interesting thing to just look at because.
There's a ton of practice management stuff that's presented, and there's a lot of soft skills that's presented, and every single large CE event that goes on, there's days of stuff that they get, that they have access to.
There's so many ICs that we have where I'm like, if you literally just would have talked to them, you wouldn't be here.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And so while I get that, I encourage, I think it might be something to look at when we do rules discussion.
I think part of this discussion is just gonna make sure everybody's on the same page. Want to make sure that, you know, if you do hear people complaining about the work that Sue and the committee's doing about why this one wasn't approved, we don't just go out willy-nilly. You know, if we feel like the credentials are good to be teaching it, great. If they're kind of iffy, you've got to up your game, and sometimes that makes people mad, and that's why they won't reach out to you. So just make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, and I would never want to instill a rule that says, well, you must be an LVT to teach an LVT course, or you must be a DVM to teach a DVM course. I mean, perfect example now, you've got the screwworm issue going on. There's a lot of PhD entomologists that can bring significant CE, but at the same token, I think that should be the exception, that the rules committee does validate that their credentials are appropriate for the scenario. So I think there's a good check and balance there.
Good. Just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, I think.
Any other comments, discussions are needed?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on then. Appreciate y'all's conversation with that. We move on to agenda item number 11, consideration and approval of agreed orders. Ms. Phelps.
Thank you, Dr. Bella. So I do have a number of cases that board members want pulled for executive session. So I'm gonna read those off if you need me to repeat them, let me know. They are CP 21-144, CP 24-520, CP 24-522, CP 24-524, CP 25-018, CP 25-113, CP 25-118, CP 25-146, CP 25-211, and CP 25-220.
What was the last one? Sorry.
25-220, thank you. So would any board members like to be recused from voting on any of these cases or pull any additional cases for executive session?
And the case that was presented from the person with public comment, has that one been pulled?
That'll be the medical review dismissal.
It's okay, staff.
Or staff dismissal, sorry.
But I can make a note of that.
I'd like to pull that one.
Got it. Thank you.
And all those that were emailed are included in the.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there any other cases that y'all want to pull? Agreed orders? Anybody? All right. Is there a motion to approve all the cases except those pulled, as just said by Ms. Phelps, for discussion in the executive session?
So
Move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Agenda item number 12, consideration and approval of cases recommended for dismissal from informal conference. Recognize Ms. Phelps.
Would any board members like to be recused from voting on any of these cases or pull any of them for executive session?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve dismissal of the following cases listed under agenda item 11 from informal conference.
You mean agenda item 12?
12.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve all the cases for dismissal from informal conference. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, All the cases from informal conference have been approved. Okay, agenda item number 13, consideration and approval of cases recommended for dismissal from staff conference. Ms. Phelps.
Right, so I do have a couple of cases here to pull for executive session. It's CP 24024, CP 24012, CP 24197, and CP 25106. So would any board members like to be recused from voting on any of these cases or pull any additional cases for executive session?
Could you repeat those one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. CP 24024, CP 24012, CP 24197, and CP 25106.
This is staff dismissals.
Staff, yes.
I think you're missing my list. Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, CP 23-185.
Okay, CP 23.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing 012.
Third one down.
Oh, just kidding.
All right, is there a motion to approve all cases except those pulled for discussion in executive session?
Move.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say, or is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, consideration and approval of cases recommended for dismissal from medical review. Ms. Phelps?
So for this agenda item, Dr. Gola is recused from voting on cases CP 24268 and CP 24334. Additionally, I notified both board members want to pull cases CP 24066, CP 24229, and CP 24382 for executive session. Would any other?
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
CP 24382.
Thank you.
And so would any other board members like to be recused from voting on any of these cases or pull any additional cases for executive session?
Ms. Phelps, could we pull CP 24495, please?
495.
495?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You did say 066, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve all the cases except those pulled for discussion in executive session?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of consideration of approval of cases recommended for dismissal from medical review, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Okay, pursuant to chapter 551.071, subsection 1 of the Texas Government Code, this meeting of the Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners will now go into executive session at 10:13 a.m. We could clear the room and we will have that executive session in here. 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. The board has returned from executive session. Are we online? No, I'll have to do that again.
Olivier's gotta get back.
Okay, start over. It is 11:03 a.m. and pursuant to sections 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, the board has returned from executive session. No action was taken in executive session. And so we are going to continue with our agenda. And we're going to start with agenda item number 13, consideration and approval of cases that were pulled for discussion from staff conference. And so I have CP 23-185, CP 24-024, CP 24-012, CP 24-197, and CP 25-106. Is there a motion about any of those individual cases?
I move we pull CP 24024 for an informal conference.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we would pull CP 24-024 and send it to informal conference. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Okay, motion carries. So that's, now, are there any other of those cases that I identified from staff conference that you care to have a motion?
I move that we approve the staff conference CPs that were pulled for executive session.
Okay.
The rest of them.
All right, any seconds?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor for approval of the remaining staff conference cases that were pulled, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to move up to the cases that were pulled. Agenda item number 11, agreed orders. CP 21-144, CP 24-520, CP 24-522, CP 24-524, CP 25-018, CP 25-113, CP 25-118, CP 25-146, CP 25-211, CP 25-220. Are there any individual cases that anybody would like to make a motion regarding those cases?
I move that we approve the so listed agreed orders.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. There were none for informal conferences, and so the last one will be cases that we pulled for medical review. Those were CP 24066, CP 24229, CP 24382, and CP 24495. Are there any motions in regards to those cases for medical review?
Move that we dismiss the so listed cases from medical review.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now moving on to agenda item number 16, discussion of possible agenda items for future board meetings. Does anybody have any?
I just,
Bless you.
we've got a huge lift coming up with that rules process. I'd love to see maybe staff develop a one pager of here's the process and how it flows. I think that's, you know, not only for the veterinarian community, but the public community to be able to participate and know what's the proper process for providing that. I hate when we get to this meeting and someone shows up with public comment and it's like, whoa, we did that 3 months ago. So maybe an agenda item at the next one is just a quick reminder of the process and how we're gonna approach it. Same for board members, you know, if you're not on the rules committee, what's the appropriate time for you to provide thoughts and feedback so that we can do that process in a timely and efficient manner with how many times we meet a year.
Do that.
And that information too will, at least information about the rule review and the process will be included in that board notes newsletter too that's going out. So that'll be going out to the public, hopefully later this week.
Yeah, hopefully just like a simple to,
Fair enough. Any other agenda items, conversations, discussion, recommendation?
I did have a question from some folks in my community about how veterinarians can get more involved on committees for different processes. Is that,
And then through the TVMA.
well, I like, for example, the equine dental provider appointment.
Yeah,
Like-
there's only 3 positions, so we can't, that is limited by statute to 3 positions. So
Okay,
we
so
can't,
there's no other,
there's no other opportunity.
And it's a challenge too, because there are, especially on that committee, there are like specific rules that it's gotta be a veterinarian who employs an EDP, a licensed equine dental provider, and I forget the qualifications of the third, but that one's very specifically enumerated in statute.
thank you.
All right, any other comments for possible agenda items for the future? Okay, there'll be no further business to come before the TBVME today. This meeting is adjourned at 11:08 a.m. Thank y'all very much. Yeah.
Working on.